We got here a Martin D45. It's the 70s, and it came to me pretty much stock. Didn't really sound very good when it came in. It had a lot of, it had a few issues that needed to be corrected, and I took care of all those. For instance, the bridge had been shaved down. It needed a neck reset. Etc. It just was not in good running condition. It had the stock heavy Grover tuners on it. Just kind of a dead sounding guitar. It wasn't anything really spectacular. So I was allowed to do my thing to it. And the first thing we did was put the Waverly tuners on it. I used the gold ones with the white buttons, which I suggested and thought that the buttons would look really nice with the binding and everything, rather than just having solid gold. I like the white buttons. They go good with the trim. So anyway, we did that. The frets are in good shape, so nothing to do there. It needed a neck reset really bad. When I got the neck off, the truss rod nut, which is an old style truss rod nut, the nut's clear up in here. The location of that nut varies depending on which rod they're using. Anyway, the nut was totally loose, so there was a little washer between the nut and the rod, and that washer was just rattling around like crazy. Well, when I went to loosen the rod, I had it in my vise over here. I have the neck off, and it's over there in my vise. And wow, that rod, the whole rod was turning. It was like, man, this is going to snap. I don't think I've ever seen one, that sticky before. So I propped the neck up at an angle, dropped some WD-40 down there, and left it. Went fishing for the rest of the day. Came back, and then wow, that rod was just tight, But I knew the WD-40 had done its work, so pop, hit it like that, snapped the nut loose, took it off, cleaned it all up, lubed everything. I don't know if it was rust or glue on it or something, whatever, but anyway, the truss rod was not even working. So took care of that, fixed that all up, got the rod working really nice, and also, let me get one of them, and I'll show you what's going on. This is a truss rod tutorial. Style truss rod, and this is one of the better ones actually. But you can see how the rod is inside this metal deal, this metal tube, and it's crimped in right here to keep, and the crimp is to keep the threaded rod from popping out. So if I loosen this, for instance, like this, you can see that this is loose. This nut is going to be loose and it's going to rattle. And that was what the problem with that D45 was. The other problem is this rod wanted to pop out of there. See, this rod's not coming out because of this crimp that's in here. But early on, they didn't have that. So this is sitting inside the neck up to this point, right? And this will want, the rod will want to pop out of there. And that rod was popping out so bad that I could barely keep it in there. And I was tightening the thing down. So what I did was wedge a little piece of wood into here and epoxy that in to keep the rod down, keep it from popping up and causing issues. So I fixed that on it. So back to this D45. After fixing the truss rod issue, I had to fix quite a bit of loose binding, quite a bit of things going on here. It's a D45, so it's got a lot of stuff going on. It's got abalone inlays, it's got plastic inlays next to that. It's got the binding And when you take a neck off with steam, especially a guitar that's got a little age on it like this one does, the glue's been loosened up, things come apart. So the binding came off the tip, a little bit came up in here. I put all that back together, did the neck reset on it, did the popsicle brace, took that out, scalloped the braces, replaced the huge rosewood bridge plate with a smaller black locust one. I did a new bridge because the original bridge had been shaved. Left the pickguard alone because I kind of like the way the black looks with all the other black on the guitar. To me, there's nothing wrong with a black pickguard as long as it's not shrinking and cracking and that kind of thing. And personally, I just like the way the black looks with the other opponents. So we stuck with black. The one issue that I did run into was heat sinking on the top, which you can see right here, and that's from pulling the bridge plate. It takes heat to take that bridge plate off, and that's the riskiest thing that I do. This particular guitar has one of the it's kind of a rubbery, flexible lacquer finish. Lacquer varies a lot. It's a chemical composition, and some lacquer will dry on hard and brittle and crispy. Some lacquer will dry on real rubbery and flexible. This is the rubbery and flexible type. And I have more trouble with that causing heat bubbling than any other type. When you hit that, it's very, very sensitive to heat. And you don't know what you got until something happens. So when I was pulling the bridge plate, even though I have cooling rags and I have all kinds of cooling stuff on the top, it bubbled, and that's just one of the risks that happens when you do a bridge plate. Fortunately for me, it's not pristine. This guitar's got finish cracks all over the place. It's got some wear and tear that, had it been a pristine D45, that would have been a little bit scarier. But it's not too bad. And what you do with this, there's no real good way to fix it, because when you start messing with finishes, you're treading on dangerous ground right there. It's easy to say, oh yeah, I just do this, and that. But when you're dealing with a lacquer finish, especially one that's got that rubbery feel, you don't know exactly how it's going to react, and you've got a sunburst on here to deal with too. And you might end up with a clear spot like this. Sometimes you got to know when to just stop and leave it alone. But what you can do on this kind of thing when it's bubbling is simply just rub it with your finger. And you can rub it like that and cause enough heat with your thumb, and rub it on the side of your nose, get a little oil, rub it. And you'll rub that down again. And if you just do that every so often, once in a while when you think about it, just kind of rub it down over a year or so, you'll have most of that heat bubbling down. Whereas if you go and spray a lacquer melt or a lacquer retarder or even a little bit more lacquer on top of it, then all of a sudden it's going to start reflecting the light different. And when you polish it out, you're going to have a shiny spot on there. So then you got to polish the entire guitar, and it just is not going to come out looking all the same. You're still going to have a spot, which you can tell that you put new lacquer on, or you put lacquer melt, or you put something on. It's one thing working on a little spot right here. It's another thing working on the whole entire headstock. Like you may have seen some online tutorials of how to fix a cracked headstock. You're working an entire area up here. That's different from working with a small area right here. So the best thing to do with this is just leave it alone, in my opinion. Come up here like this, rub it out, keep rubbing, and you will push that lacquer down over time. But it's totally a cosmetic thing, and you got to really look at it. You got to, in fact, I swear it's getting better by the day. Humidity on the guitar will also help quite a bit. As the guitar humidifies, the wood swells, and it'll push into that lacquer and change it a little bit. As it dries out, it'll come back down. Eventually, it'll kind of pull that lacquer down with it. So, anyway, I left that alone. So, here's what we got now, and I think it sounds pretty good. It's really punchy sounding. Got a very nice sound. It's fun to play. It's going to get bassier as the scalloping kicks in. I always tell people, it's going to take anywhere from two months to a year for the scalloping to really take effect. And that's just the way it is. If you scallop to where you want it, then what happens in a year when the guitar ages? Then it's going to be too bassy. It's going to be too mushy. So a freshly scalloped guitar is not going to sound quite the way it is after it's been played, worked in, warmed up, that kind of thing. So I'm happy with the way this one sounds. All right, this is our comparison guitar, and this is a D28 1937 Authentic. And I know there's a lot of differences between it and this D45 here, but the purpose of this comparison is simply to show how does this guitar sound compared to what I would consider the best. I don't like using the word best, but the most vintage-ish modern Martin made. So the 37 Authentic, is done 100% right. No, almost 100% right. It's done about 98% right. The failing is in the bridge. It's got the deep, long shadow rather than a true vintage shadow. But other than that, it's pretty good. It's hide glue. It's a T-bar. It's forward scallop X bracing. No popsicle brace. Small tuners. Hide glue construction. Did I say that? Hide glue construction. It's got an Adirondack spruce top. It's got a Madagascar back and sides, and you guys know all the specs on this thing. Madagascar back and sides, which is as close to Brazilian as you're going to get today. And I like Madagascar. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind having Madagascar at all. So I just consider the 1937 Authentic to be the pinnacle of a modern Martin bluegrass dread. And that's why I'm comparing to this D45 here. How's it sound compared to this one, Sounds pretty good. I mean, it's got its characteristic sound. This one's always going to be a little bit brighter, a little bit more punchier because of the X bracing, which I talk about quite a bit. And that is simply that this D45, the X bracing is farther back here. So it's going to be punchier no matter what, no matter what you do to it. But I like it, I think it's a good sounding guitar. I don't feel disadvantaged at all playing it. So, all right, that's the purpose of using this guitar. It's a standard. I use it in a lot of my videos. You can compare a lot of other videos where I'm playing this exact same guitar with the exact same strings and the exact same Red Bear pick, and it's kind of a standard, a fixed target, if you will. Okay?